Mà hỏi nếu anh
Cái này nó sát cái dọc người dọc mà người rưỡi to mới biết gặp cái bên cái cây bên
This is John Hersey. Hi, John. How's it going today?
It's going good.
Is it going pretty
Nice
good?
to see you. It's a sunny day.
It is. So we're in John Hersey's studio.
Tiny gallery.
Gallery. That's right. It's not a studio. So John, where do I start? You inspired me, and I don't know if you remember this story, but one of the coolest things I ever saw when I was an early start of my career as a designer was the Graphic Artists Guild
Pricing and
Ethical Guidelines cover.
That was a wild one. That was, God, I know, like early 90s maybe? Something, 92 or something like that. And yeah, it was sort of the introduction of, that was the vector art. That was like an early Illustrator thing. And I really wanted to, I think at that time it was, the kind of work I was doing was all icons based on flat patterns. And then, I don't know, it was really Sims Tabak, who was a great children's book illustrator from New York. He was the art director of the Graphic Artists Guild at that time. I loved his work. I had a couple of his books for the kids. Anyways, he just let me do whatever I wanted to do, and I always wanted to do something that never had been seen before. And all the New York illustrators and all the New York people didn't like any digital art at the time. They did, although I received phone calls from lots of people, illustrators from New York, and they said, what programs are you using? And how do you do this? And what should I buy? And so, you know, I just gave them all the information I could because I thought it was fun that somebody had a good attitude. But then somebody were all like, some people were like, it's the end of the world. It's Orwellian. Here we go. It's like, yeah, it's the end of the world. Every day is the end of the world. It's like, okay.
And then I'm guessing, if I remember correctly too, you got connected with Wired, I'm sure. You probably did some Wired stuff, right?
God, I can't remember.
Maybe not.
Yeah, I did a couple of pieces. The people who were doing most of the big thing in Wired magazine was the content pages. The content pages had about 3 or 4 big spreads where they had a big piece of typography or a message, and then that introduced you to the content. There was like 3 or 4 of them. I did a few of those, and but the people who were doing the most they were called MAD, and it was a French guy, and I can't remember the name right now, but anyways, their design firm was called MAD, and I had did some of that. I had been doing lots of illustrations for them.
Yeah.
The very first illustration I did for any magazine with a computer was Macworld magazine, which was started by PC World magazine.
Okay.
In 1984 was their first issue, and we were contracted or offered to borrow the early Macintoshes to create the illustrations for the magazine. And
using the early
their edict
ones.
was, we are only going to create graphics for Macworld magazine using the computer. You know, they can take photographs of people, but all of the other stuff, all the informational graphics and all the illustration was going to be done by the Mac. At that time, that was not a color computer, so we had to figure out. It was very much like screen printing, where you had to, in Mac Paint, you created the black for black and another.
Separations.
You create separations and try to figure it out because there was no color.
Yeah.
So you would do the printout outline and then maybe color it in and then talk to your art director. Bruce Chardonnay was the art director. And then all the color was made at the printer. So you would make the 5 different colors in black, and then they would recreate it at the printer. And then
I'm guessing you probably worked with, do you remember Bernard at Zebra Graphics down there on Townsend Street? It was a separation shop.
No, I never. But maybe the
magazine.
The magazine probably did. I never worked with those people directly. Because it was done that way.
Yeah.
All of the magazines, they printed 30,000 magazines.
Yeah.
Every one of those magazines was an original. Okay. If you think about it.
Okay.
It wasn't like you did a watercolor and it was it was
Right.
separated.
Right.
All of those,
Right.
like screen printing.
Almost like a an original
It was an
stone
addition.
lithograph type of thing.
It was an addition.
Yeah,
And that was the first time that anybody would see color print would be when the magazine was printed, which I thought was such an interesting idea. I think I have one of those magazines somewhere in the archives. But
now tell me this, I think, how do I put this? Again, your work to me is amazing. Some of the forebearers of, I think, maybe what has influenced you also is what led me to you, like the Russian constructivists, like Rothko and
not Rothko, but
not Rothko. What's his name?
Some of the graphic designers from the Russian movement. There was also some pattern designers. I can't remember.
Like Elizitsky.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And some of those jokers,
also, right? Right, some of those people, because it's where graphic design was being really experimented with in the Soviet, early Soviet era, revolution era, before Stalin came in and crushed everything.
Right.
It was 1917 to 23. That was like the super creative period of time. And everybody, when I was going to art school, it was just very graphic, very experimental. Yeah, collage mixed in with typography, mixed in with illustration. And also that movement really influenced 50s design. Like Ivan Chermayev and
bright, bold shapes and colors.
Like Bradbury Thompson. And everybody was super influenced by the Soviets.
Okay.
And they remade the way and there's a designer from every culture in Western culture that was a graphic designer, advertising designer. In Italy, it was Carboni or something like that. I had one of his books. Every culture, in the Japanese culture too, had somebody who was working in that way, where it was just two colors. A lot of the magazines only had two colors. And everything was very like angles and photograph and weird crop photographs and beautiful minimal typography or bold typography.
Yeah.
It was so beautiful. Like advertising really has not, every once in a while you see something that's really great.
Yeah.
It was terrible in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s. Advertising was ugly. And I always was going,
stock
let's go
photos.
Back to the 50s. Go back to the 60s,
Yeah.
One of the biggest influences on me and my desire to become an artist was album cover design.
Yes.
Because when I was growing up and we were all getting stoned and going to concerts, it's like, Tarkus or Janis Joplin, Big Brother and the Holding Company, Ball and Chain. Or
now talk to me about. Do you know the guys from
Pink Floyd album covers?
Signosis.
Hypnosis.
Hypnosis. With the G in there.
Them. Yeah. Hypnosis. They did a lot of Pink Floyd album covers. They did. That Hypnosis really introduced me to something that was really inspiring.
Kind of a way of looking at things differently.
It was like surrealism, but very sophisticated and kind of funny. And then also there's another designer and another movement. The people who were like Frank Zappa album covers.
Okay.
They were like taking photography and super colorizing them or making data kind of collages, like with Captain Beefheart, Trout Mass Replica. That album cover is like, wow, that's okay to do that? And it's like, that was
that's
Frank
cool.
Zappa, album cover designers, and like Uncle Meat. I don't know who that artist was. That gave me the license to go, I'm just going to do illustration using photographs and drawing on stuff. And it's like, and then I went to art school. That's before I went to art school because, I loved album covers. And so that was the idea. It's like, who gets to do these pictures? Oh, an illustrator can do this.
Sure.
And so it's like, I want to be an illustrator.
Sure.
Because I didn't know what a fine artist was. And I just wanted to do something that was like populous. Like people would buy this album and have my art. Just like I used to do when I would buy an album and go, I get to look at that whatever album cover, like Roger Dean's, Yes album covers and stuff like that. So I went to my first illustration class was with Oh man, my brain. Mick Haggerty. Mick Haggerty, he was substituting for he was buddies with the guy who was, I forget. The other guy, who I can't remember right now, did a Frank Zappa album cover, Dynamo Hum. He did that. Highly detailed, highly realistic. Mick Haggerty did the album covers for Fleetwood Mac and Crime of the Century and it's a bunch of different ones. He was British. And he came and taught our class, and he gave us an assignment. And it was to do an album cover. It's like perfect. And so I had to make up my own band, and I did this design, which was like 5 pieces of Velveeta cheese and a guy that looked like he was driving a 50s like convertible, but in space, you know. And I was the only one, obviously, who brought in a collage. Everybody else is trying to draw and paint.
Right.
And people looked at me. They said, we didn't know we could use photo. You know, there was no rules. I read the assignment.
Sure.
It was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this album cover using collage, just like I had seen 100 times, laying some of the groovier album covers. And then everybody in the class was pissed off. But the teacher said, this is excellent. And it was like, cool. It totally reinforced my idea of just doing what I felt like doing. Yeah. Also, I had a little bit of a chip because I was putting myself through art school.
Oh, okay.
I didn't accept my dad didn't want me to go to art school.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what he wanted me to do. He probably wanted me to be an accountant like he was.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I saved up this money and I went through Art Center. I put myself through, so I was like kind of cocky. It's like I would sometimes say to teachers, only a couple times if they were being assholes, I'd say, you know, you're working for me.
I love it.
I appreciate the fact that you're mad at me because I'm late for class. But I stood up and told her this. You are working for me because I am paying for my tuition.
Wow.
So you have to show me a little bit more, respect and don't try to make an example of me in front of class. We're here to make art.
Wow.
We're not here to make everybody behave.
And I think that personality comes through in your work too, in that you're not bashful. You're not like, you're very directed, and you're like, like, you know what you want to do. The line is there. There's no doubt in the line. You know what I mean? So, well, I want to say thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome,
for this.
Matt. Nice to see you.
We almost drifted into like a dad psychology session there.
You never know.
Yeah, you never know.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Let's take a quick pass on some of these beautiful pieces.
Yeah, there's a variety of things.
Yeah, so cool. All right, John.
Pat, it's great to see you, man.
Good to see you, man.
We'll get together and make some art and have some whiskey.